Good. Okay. We can start. Maybe. Oh, I clicked the wrong one. Okay. So, disclaimer, like always, all of this information is just my opinion and is for informational purposes only. Do not, if you want investment advice, please seek professional advice. And yeah. Cool. Okay, so, oh, no one. Who wants to lead the icebreaker? Okay. So wait, no, let's let Katie do it. You can do something else.
Okay, let me actually read what the icebreaker is. So for today's icebreaker, we will pick on a couple volunteers to talk about their final expectations. Yay! Please say the final that you're most confident in about and the most not confident about and why. Okay, I will start off. And then we will pick a couple of volunteers. So I think I'm the only junior here. Okay, the final I'm most worried about is probably my math final. Only because I have not started the final review packet yet, and I think it's due soon, so that's going to be interesting. And I also threw away all my math notes as the year went along, so I have no idea how to review for anything. But I should be fine, hopefully. And the final that I'm most confident about is probably my AP Bio final, only because biology is something I've always been good at.
I guess I will go next. So, I guess the final I'm most worried about is 100% Spanish, mainly because I'm just not good at Spanish. That's just what it is, okay? I'm just not good at Spanish, but I'll figure it out. Everything will be okay. And then most confident, I'm not sure. I mean, Spanish, to be honest, Spanish is the only one I'm really like somewhat worried about. Everything else I'm kind of fine, so I guess any other subject but Spanish. So there you go. Does anyone want to volunteer to share their thoughts? What? Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Take the microphone.
All right. So the final I'm most confident about, I think, is math, and then is that echoing?
Why do you think
Okay. And then the final I'm most worried about is my physics final.
Okay. Cool. Thank you for the answer. Okay, yeah. Who else would like to volunteer? Anyone?
Does anyone need advice on finals? I know this is like your first time taking a real final.
Just study. That's
Study. If finals week is actually really easy
okay.
because it's just minimum day and you don't get homework.
All right. So last volunteer, Austin.
Hello, everyone. All right, so the final that I'm most confident in is my Chinese final for obvious reasons, for those people who know me. And my least confident final is, well, I think it's my my history final. Yeah, okay. Well, have you taken it? That's what I thought. All right. Oh yeah, true. Okay, if I get a 0 in the final, I'll still get a.
Exactly.
I'll still get like an A minus. Yeah, probably English final then, because if I score bad on that, I'm gonna get a B. So yeah, that's that.
Cool. All right. Thank you for everyone who volunteered. That was our icebreaker for today. And now we'll move on to the spreadsheet check. Okay, so usually this is Charlie's slide, but he is not here today. So once again, just scan that QR code real quick. Check your attendance records, please, and let me know if there's any issues right now. You can just let me know right now, and I'll fix that for you. And I'll leave that up for maybe a minute or so, and then we can move on from there. if there's any issues, please let me know. If not, I'll leave this up for another like 20 seconds and then we can move on. You good? Yeah. Alrighty, so once again, scan it, check it, and now we will move on to some updates. Okay, so the reason why we didn't have any meeting last week was because if we did, the next meeting would be next week, which is obviously finals, and I didn't want to do that because of all the wacky schedules and stuff. So this meeting will actually be the last meeting until 2022, which is really exciting. So just putting your time preparing for your finals and taking a breather. So officer applications will be open tonight, and they remain open over the break. So we're looking for some extra officers. So the link will be in the Discord and in the link tree. And once again, when I get home tonight, I will open that up. And yeah. Okay, so since it's been a while, these are our main takeaways from last meeting. So we talked about a bullish and bearish market and what those were. And the spread is the difference between the bid and ask price, which is usually what you get on the stock. And hedge funds are powerful groups that utilize investors' money in order to build a strategic portfolio to make profit. Now, this will be important for today's discussion about Gamestop and all that. So, Sir Taj, would you like to talk about the agenda?
Okay, agenda. First, we're gonna talk about some terms to help understand about the GME short squeeze, and then second, we're gonna talk about what Reddit is. Third, we're gonna take a deep dive into GME controversy, and we're gonna do some reflections and things to keep in mind.
Oh, the camera's right here.
That is our agenda. Thank you, Sir Taj,
I should.
for today. Alright. So, market update and terms. So, this is the market update for today, and today was actually a bullish day, meaning that it was a pretty good day for the stock market. But, as you can see, a lot of these sectors that are now in the red were green a couple weeks ago, which is really interesting because I'm pretty sure everyone knows the reasoning behind it. Anyone want to take a stab at it?
New variant of COVID.
Exactly, yeah. So new variant of COVID, it strikes a lot of fear in investors, and just they start to sell. They start to sell, and because of that, everything drops. And as you can see, only a handful of sectors are in the green right now, even though it was a good market day for today. So, yeah. All right. So now moving on to terms. This is something that is called a short. This is really, really important to understand for the short securities, the GME that we're going to be talking about. So essentially, a short trade is where you essentially bet on a stock going down, and you want to profit from it. Now, how do you do that? So essentially, you just borrow an asset from somebody else, and you promise them to give it back within a certain amount of time. And you wait for a lower price, so you would sell when you get that borrowed asset, and then you would wait for a lower price, buy it back, return it to the borrower, and you make that profit. So that is essentially, I guess, the thought process of a short trade. Obviously, if it decides to go up, you will lose money. And that is some foreshadowing for you. Because, yeah. Okay, next. A long trade is essentially the opposite. You are essentially just betting on the stock going up. And this is just where you buy an asset and you wait for the stock price to go up. So yeah, so they're essentially just opposites of each other, and they're really often used in the stock market. Next, just a brief overview on hedge funds. I know we talked about this in our main takeaways from last week, but hedge fund is essentially a group of people that use investors' money in order to play aggressive, risky stock picks. And something to really understand about this is that hedge funds, these people who invest in hedge funds generally have a lot of money to lose. They're generally already really, really wealthy, and they're just trying to get even more wealthy through these aggressive stock picks. And essentially, they're just trying to make a profit. So that's something to keep in mind. And this is a short squeeze, which is essentially what happened in the GameStop thing. So a short squeeze is where a price of stock rapidly increases as a result of short sellers attempting to exit their position. Now remember that short selling involves you buying back your borrowed asset after you sold it. Now how do you do this? You would have to buy it. And if something goes wrong and a bunch of short sellers buy it, what happens to the demand? It increases, right? Yeah, and because it increases, what also happens is the stock price increases. And we will obviously talk a lot about that, a lot more very shortly. So those were our 4 terms, and now we will go on to Reddit. So I'm pretty sure most of you guys are familiar with this, and it's kind of memey. Okay, I understand that, but you really have to understand how this even happened. If you can't understand how this happened if you don't know where Reddit is. So essentially, it's just a social media platform where people make posts, and there's groups of communities called subreddits. And one of those subreddits was called Wall Street Bets, which is where everything kind of started. So yeah, and there's upvotes and downvotes similar to like and dislike buttons. So why does this matter? Alright, so this is essentially how it started. You guys can read all that text there, but essentially a subreddit called Wall Street Bets, which is pretty much a meme subreddit. Okay, it is not something that's very professional, and they currently currently have more than 10 million users on their subreddit, which is a lot of people, and that is essentially where it all started from. So yeah, I'll just leave it up there. You guys. Question? Okay, it's important to grasp this because this is where it all started.
Stocks?
Well, not stocks. The GameStop controversy. Yeah, that's where it all started. And I know this is very unconventional, but the effects of what happened is actually very serious, and it's quite interesting too. So, all right. So the start of it all. So early January, a user that goes by Deep Effing Value starts a post that shows all his call positions that are heavily shorted GameStop stock. So essentially, what we have to understand about this subreddit is that they literally just go buy a lot of very, very, I guess, risky and dumb positions, and they usually play options as well. So they play options as well. So this user created a post where he showed off a bunch of call positions in the GameStop stock. And why this picked up so much traction, which almost has 250k upvotes, which is like likes, is because it was an extremely bad decision, considering GameStop was not a very good company at the time. It still isn't, but we will talk about that a lot more. But everyone was joking how he was going to lose a bunch of money, and however, that happens to not be the truth at all. So now we move on to the deep dive. Alright, yeah, so like I said, it wasn't a joke anymore. So people actually started buying. Hold on. Yeah, so like I said before, it is not a smart idea to do this. Okay, GameStop was a dying company, which we'll talk about in the next couple slides. And because this basically never happens, a group of people never all just come together and buy a single stock just for the sake of driving up the stock price. And which is why the situation is really incredible, and which is why we're talking about it. So although most people bought in completely randomly and just as a joke, there was actually some reasoning to go behind it, and which is this. So this is a big slide with a bunch of text, so I'll just try to summarize it, but it is really important to understand this. So essentially, the people who started all this actually used the reasoning that GameStop was slowly, well, first of all, these Redditors of these subreddits, they found that through public information that GameStop was a stock being heavily shorted by a lot of hedge funds. Now, because a lot of people don't really like the rich, and since many of these investors and people who work at these hedge funds are very wealthy, they decided, hey, let's just buy GameStop, and because they're short selling this, they're going to have to buy back. And that's pretty much exactly what happened. So like we said before, when you short a stock, you're essentially betting that the stock is going down. Now, what happens if a bunch of people buy in a stock, like randomly? Goes up. And now they don't want to lose a bunch of money because they still have to return that, right? So what they do?
Keep buying.
Exactly. So the short sellers themselves have to keep buying. And what does that do to the stock price?
Drive it up.
Exactly. So that is just kind of a domino effect. So because all of these random people on a random subreddit started buying the stock just as a complete joke, these billionaires, hedge funds, they started losing money. They had to start buying back, and that even drove up the price even more. So essentially, this was pretty successful, and it successfully disrupted the hedge funds of Wall Street. And it is very important to understand all of this right now before we go into it even more. So, but now, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. But now, next slide, we'll talk about why the stock was even shorted in the first place. Why did these hedge funds, I guess, bet against GameStop? So, this is the stock price graph, which is pretty absurd. So, yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'll just leave that up there. So essentially, this is where all the funny games the Redditors started playing there. It spiked up to around $350, dropped down, and this drop down we'll talk about very soon, and it's extremely controversial. And now it's right there. So
overall, it did have positive effect for GameStop.
For GameStop, as the stock price, yes, it increased, yes. But is that sustainable? Probably not.
Yes.
Okay, so why was GameStop even shorted in the beginning, right? Why did these hedge funds think GameStop was dying? Now, obviously, like a lot of companies, GameStop was taking a huge toll on because of COVID. And why is that? Because GameStop specifically, they offer physical games, physical copies of games. And because of this, because of COVID, they started closing down stores, and the ban even went down lower, even though it's declining even before COVID, because of internet and all online games, all of that. So GameStop started losing a lot of traction. Now, the investors on Reddit also saw that GameStop was actually starting to, I guess, develop in the online game era. So that was also a reasoning behind some people's decisions to buy GameStop. But that was essentially the, I guess, motive. And because of this, it was a really juicy opportunity to just gain a bunch of money because, you know, it's GameStop. They're a dying company. COVID's kicking them in the butt, and it's not good for them. So these hedge funds, they took a huge short positions on GameStop and other stocks as well, which we'll talk about. So that was essentially the reasoning. And obviously, thinking of it back in hindsight, who could have predicted a random group on subreddit or on Reddit just completely banding together and buying a stock? Like, who would predict that? No one. So it's kind of unfortunate on the hedge funds part, but it's still very important nonetheless. Okay, let's skip that. Okay, so the aftermath. So like you guys saw on the graph, GME ended up spiking at a price of $348.50 per share, completely disrupting the whole stock market. Because you also have to understand these hedge funds have a lot of power in the stock market. And once these two hedge funds like just pretty much lost a bunch of money, everything started just going on fire. So the two main hedge funds that lost were Melvin Capital and Light Street Capital. So Melvin Capital especially had to get a bailout from other hedge funds, totaling about more than $3 million, which is a lot. And they lost 50% of just their earnings in the month of January, which is when this happened, which is a lot of money considering these guys are handling millions of dollars. So, yeah. And this has also ignited various other campaigns similar to GameStop, like on AMC, Bed Bath & Beyond, and BlackBerry, and even more, as they were recognized that these stocks are also being heavily shorted by the rich people. And there's even more. So, you might have thought that was it, but there is more. During this fiasco, most of you guys have probably know what Robinhood is, right? Yeah? Okay, cool. So, a lot of these Wall Street investors, you can say, they used Robinhood. And what ended up happening was that Robinhood froze the purchase of GameStop and other stocks that were being like driven up artificially, like AMC and all of those. And they just completely froze it. And in most instances, you can only sell the stock instead of buying it even more. Now, can someone guess why this is a huge issue?
Stock manipulation.
Exactly. This is stock manipulation at its finest. If you are one of the biggest trading platforms in the stock market and you literally only make buyers only able to sell, that's going to drive the price down. And that's why I pointed out that graph going down, because that was exactly what happened to, well, it was as a result of Robinhood doing this, because you could literally only sell. And at that point, the investors the investors just started getting panicky and they started selling. So this is really important to understand, because this might be something we are going to look back in a couple of decades, because this is just something that has never happened before, and especially what Robinhood did, just completely stopping trades on a stock makes this a very eerie situation, because if they have the power to stop this, they have the power to stop any stock on the stock market. And that's, when in the wrong hands, that could be very dangerous, and it is something that's very, very important to understand. So this might be, although it started from very humble beginnings, it has very major consequences. So there was a lawsuit, I believe, also that was pursued against Robinhood as a result, but was recently dismissed, causing more outrage in the community, as this is something that's just never happened before. And because the stock market generally runs on, I guess, people having the right to freely just buy any stock they want, doing this is even more, I guess, outraging, as people claim that their rights have been stripped away as a result of this. And the Robinhood actually responded that they did this because of their new financial, I think it was something with their finance that they had to stop. And that is probably also due to the fact that hedge funds were pressuring them to stop it because they were losing a bunch of money. And that just goes to show how much power these hedge funds have, and kind of the reason why it all started in the first place, because they wanted to get back at the rich people, and they wanted to get back at these big hedge funds controlling the stock market. And conclusion. So main takeaways: shorting a stock is betting on the stock to go down in value in order to make a profit. Taking a long position in the stock is betting on the stock to go up in value in order to make a profit. Hedge funds are wealthy organizations that generally operate in order to create profit for themselves and investors. The Gamestop short squeeze was essentially a huge community gathering up all together in an attempt to send a message to the trading world, and this led to many various consequences that might be relevant in decades. So we can only wait to see for that one. So now we're going to move on to paper trading. I wasn't sure if we were going to have time for this, but it looks like we're good on time, so I will get that up and running.
No reason. Perfect.
Question, are you gonna trade this singular, hard stop?
Okay, sick. So we have it up, guys. Okay, cool. So we did. Let's go to our open position. Okay, so we bought a couple of things actually. So we bought Roblox, Tesla, Netflix, QQQ, all of those good stuff. And as you can see, we can. Okay, there's a huge block here. But as you can see, we can see the return on some of these buys. Sorry. So, let's see. So Roblox has been doing pretty good, which is interesting. Tesla we bought where it dropped below 1,000, and now it's over 1,000, which is very cool. And Netflix has actually dropped down from, because I think they recently hit a spike. I think we bought it when they hit the spike actually, so we're down a couple hundred on that. And Bitcoin has actually gone down. We bought it at 67,000 and it is right now at 50,000. So we only bought 0.1 of a share, so we only lost $2,000. But yeah, it just shows you how volatile cryptocurrency is, even the biggest one. So we still have, let's see, we have $75,000 in our cash balance, so we can still buy a couple more stocks. Does anyone want to? Any-
Let's buy some Blockbuster.
Blockbuster? Why is that? What's your reasoning?
The company doesn't exist anymore.
I'm trying to see some like real, maybe like reasons. Oh.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, so that is a good point. The thing about that. So I was talking with Alan just like on their own terms, but these pharmaceutical companies are like very volatile, and even though, so this is why the pharmaceutical companies and like biotech sector in itself is very scary to work with, because it just goes up and down, and you don't know unless you have insider knowledge, which is illegal by the way, but so even the only way you would actually be able to predict is if you had insider knowledge, whether a company was releasing a new vaccine during this date or making a new discovery on this date. So it's just really hard. But I do see, I guess, pharmaceutical companies maybe short term increasing, but it's really hard to predict. But we can definitely buy some, because I think this COVID thing might pick up some steam even more, but yeah. Any other ideas? It could be anything. Yeah? Apple. Why is that? Nice. Okay, yeah, I like that thought a lot. So, like you said, Apple is a blue chip company, so it's really reliable. And because Christmas is coming up, a lot of these big companies will start exploding. So, oh, that's not the right symbol. Ah, there we go.
No, they're coming back. They're making news.
Okay, sick. We can buy like, let me just test this out. That's a lot. Wait, no, that's not. It's only 1,000. Okay, so we can. Is this even the correct? Wait, wait. Yeah, it is. Okay, wait. Do I have the symbol right? I'm so confused. No, I get it. Okay. Okay, so we can buy like, I guess, 30 shares of this since it's only 170 preview confirmed. All right. Anything else? Any other stocks? Anthony first, and then Sir Lunch. Nvidia. Why? Okay, so yeah, a funny thing about these, I do like the decision with Nvidia, but something just about Nvidia, they have handled. Okay, I'm butchering these names. Give me 1 second. Am I spelling this right? Okay, I am. Okay, so the thing about Nvidia is that they have handled the semiconductor shortage. I'm sure most of you guys have heard of it extremely well, which is why they're still succeeding, even though there's global worldwide shortage of semiconductors, which makes it essentially the main ingredient in their products. So it's just really interesting, and I do agree with this buy. Let's see how many. I guess I'm trying to put in about like 5,000 each, so we can open 15 here. All right. Any other? Yes, sir. Go ahead. I like that. I like that thought as well. Yes. So, we talked about how a couple meetings ago, we talked about how Netflix was spiking up because of Squid Game and how it was very popular, and if this also follows that same track, the same thing will happen. So we can buy around like 40 shares probably. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Any other recommendations? Yeah. Lucid. Okay. Yeah, that is an extremely interesting one. Would you like to explain why?
Well, they have like large Chinese and Saudi
Yeah, I do agree. So the thing about Lucid, I was looking at the stock like 6 months ago maybe because I stumbled across an article on it. It's really interesting because it does have a bunch of potential, but it is in a very competitive environment, or not environment, sector, and it's only $43 right now. I think a couple months ago it was like at 15, which is really crazy how it's spiked up. So this is just a really interesting stock to look at, and I do agree with this buy as well. The whole point of this paper trading thing is just to test out different companies, see how they're doing, and yeah. So we have the ability to, yeah.
Sony.
Sony, why is that?
The PS5 is doing really well,
Mhm.
and it's completely out of stock, so they almost sell out immediately.
Mhm.
And Spider-Man's about to come out, which they own a part of
Yep.
Spider-Man. So.
Yeah, those are both good reasons. And Sony, a lot of these big companies are pretty. They're pretty solid. They're reliable. Nice. And anyone else? Alan?
CrowdStrike.
What is that? I've never heard of that.
It's a cybersecurity company for like a lot of big tech.
And so that was the reasoning. Yeah. So it's just. Okay. What is the symbol for that? Oh. CRWD CrowdStrike? Okay, cool. So, alright. Interesting. Okay, I'm personally going to take a look at that. That's interesting stuff. So, I think 25 should be around 5,000. Yeah, there we go. Alright, cool. Any talks? No? Alright, yeah, that was a good amount of buys. Thank you everyone for participating in this. We'll check back in the new year to see how we're doing. And, yeah, so that's that. The main thing, oh, wrong button. Okay. Post and functions, I don't have any, unfortunately, so we're gonna skip on this. But, primary request. Okay, so as you saw in today's sign-in form, we are going to try to do more advertising to get more members, obviously. And I'll also be doing a lot more with our officers and contributing with them, thinking of ideas to do that. So, we'll come back in the new year, nice and fresh, and we should be able to get more members. So, if you guys aren't a member, please just like ask your friends, just do whatever you can. Yeah, just help us out. So, and thank you everyone. As always, next meeting we do not know yet, but good luck during finals and have a great, wonderful winter break.